I never thought I'd hear my door pounded raw at 3 a.m. My daughter Claire crumpling like a broken doll, her face battered, blood dripping from her shattered lips. She choked out, "He beat me. For her." My heart screamed in agony, my rage a fire that could burn the world. That monster broke my child, and I'd make him pay. I never thought my quiet life in Burlington, Vermont could shatter in a single night. I'm Dorothy Miller, a 62-year-old retired nurse, living in a small clapboard house on Maple Street. My days are spent tending my garden's roses or flipping through novels at the town's book club. It's a simple life, one I built after years of stitching up wounds and soothing patients. But nothing prepared me for seeing my Claire, my only daughter, broken at my doorstep. Claire was always my light. At 32, she's got this laugh that could fill a room, like wind chimes on a summer day. I'd watch her dance around this house as a girl, singing off-key to old Beatles records. I thought I'd raised her to shine, to be fearless. When she married Nathan Reed 5 years ago, I saw the way he held her hand at the altar, promising to keep her safe. I believed him. God, I believed him. "Mom, he's the one," Claire told me, her eyes sparkling over coffee at Fletcher's Diner. I hugged her, thinking she'd found her forever. But that night at 3 a.m., when she collapsed, bruised and bleeding, I saw the truth. Nathan wasn't her protector, he was her destroyer. My hands shook as I held her, my heart a raging storm. How could I have missed the signs? "Claire, honey, talk to me," I whispered, my voice cracking. She just sobbed, clinging to me like she was drowning. I swore then, as her tears soaked my shirt, I'd fight for her. Whatever it took, I'd bring my daughter back from this nightmare. My world stopped when Claire collapsed at my door, her face a canvas of bruises and blood. Kneeling beside her on my living room floor in Burlington, Vermont, I felt my heart fracture under the dim flicker of my old lamp. Her left eye was swollen shut, a purple bruise spreading like spilled ink. Her lip was split, dried blood caking the corner, and she clutched her stomach, wincing with each shallow breath. I grabbed a damp cloth from the kitchen, my hands trembling as I tried to clean the blood, but it felt like I was wiping away pieces of my soul. "Claire, sweetheart, what happened?" I asked, my voice barely steady. She looked up, tears pooling in her good eye, and choked out, "Nathan, he hit me, Mom, because I caught him with her." Those words hit like a sledgehammer. Nathan Reed, the man I'd welcomed into our family, the one who'd sworn to love her, had done this. "Caught him with who?" I pressed, my gut twisting. Claire's voice cracked. "Vanessa Cole, his co-worker at the garage. I saw them together last week, her arm around him, laughing like I didn't exist. When I called him out tonight, he snapped." Her sobs filled the room, each one a dagger in my chest. Rage surged through me, hot and unstoppable, like a wildfire tearing through my veins. "How long has this been going on?" I asked, my tone sharp, almost a snarl. Claire shook her head, her voice barely audible. "Months, maybe more. I thought he'd change, but tonight he—" She couldn't finish, her hands covering her face as she broke down. I pulled her into my arms, her frail frame trembling against me. I wanted to storm out into the snowy Vermont night and confront Nathan right then, but I'm a retired nurse, not a vigilante. I had to be smarter than my anger. I eased Claire onto the couch, draping her in the quilt my mother stitched years ago, the one Claire loved as a kid. Her phone buzzed in her hand, and I glanced at the screen. Nathan's name, with a text that made my blood run cold. "Talk, and you'll regret it." My fingers itched to hurl that phone across the room, but Claire grabbed my arm, her eyes wide with panic. "Mom, please don't. He'll come after me." Her fear, so raw and desperate, crushed me, my bold, bright Claire reduced to this. "Sweetheart, you're safe here," I said, squeezing her hand, though my heart pounded with fury. I couldn't let her see how much I was unraveling. Quietly, I pulled out my phone and snapped photos of her injuries, her swollen eye, her bloody lip, the way she curled inward like she could hide from the pain. Each photo was a promise. Nathan would answer for this. I tucked Claire into my guest bed, her breathing uneven as she drifted into a restless sleep. Sitting at my kitchen table, the clock ticking past 3:30 a.m., I checked her phone again. Another text from Nathan. "You're nothing without me." The words burned, each one fueling my resolve. I knew we needed help fast. I called Dr. Susan Hayes, my friend from my nursing days, who was working the night shift at Burlington General Hospital, 2 miles down the road. "Susan, it's Dorothy. Claire's hurt bad. I'm bringing her in," I said, my voice tight as a wire. Susan's tone was all business. "Get here quick, Dorothy." I bundled Claire into my old Ford pickup, her body slumping against the seat as we drove through the quiet, snow-dusted streets. The hospital's neon sign cut through the dark, but my heart felt heavier than ever. In the emergency room, Susan met us at the entrance, her eyes widening when she saw Claire. "Jesus, Dorothy," she whispered, ushering us to a curtained bay. As a nurse helped Claire onto a bed, I caught sight of her lifting Claire's sweater. A massive bruise, black and purple, stretched across her abdomen, nearly a foot wide, like she'd been pummeled without mercy. I gripped the edge of a chair, my vision blurring. "Who did this to you, Claire?" I asked, though the answer was already seared into me. She nodded weakly. "Nathan," she murmured, tears spilling down her cheeks. Susan pulled me aside, her voice low and urgent. "We're ordering x-rays. That bruise could mean broken ribs or worse." I nodded, my throat too tight to speak, as they wheeled Claire away. Alone in the waiting room, staring at the hospital's worn linoleum, I felt a storm of emotions. Rage at Nathan, grief for Claire, and a gnawing guilt that I hadn't protected her. But something hardened inside me. I'd spent decades saving lives in the ER, and I wasn't about to let Nathan destroy my daughters. I pulled out my phone and texted Tom Harrison, our family lawyer, who lived just outside Burlington. "Tom, it's Dorothy. We've got a battle ahead. Call me at first light." Sitting in the sterile waiting room of Burlington General Hospital, I felt like the walls were closing in. The clock on the wall ticked past 4 a.m., each second a hammer to my heart. Claire was down the hall, hooked up to machines, her bruised body being scanned for damage I couldn't bear to imagine. I gripped the armrest of the plastic chair, my knuckles white, trying to hold myself together. I'd spent 30 years as a nurse, seen broken bones and bleeding wounds, but nothing cut deeper than seeing my daughter like this. My Claire, my bright singing girl, reduced to a fragile shell by Nathan Reed's hands. Dr. Susan Hayes came back, her face grim as she sat beside me. "Dorothy, the x-rays show no broken ribs, thank God, but that bruise on her stomach, it's severe. We're checking for internal bleeding now." Her words landed like a punch. Internal bleeding. My mind spun, picturing Claire's frail frame under those harsh hospital lights. "How bad is it, Susan?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated, her eyes soft but serious. "She's stable for now, but she's been through hell. She needs rest, and we need to watch her closely." I nodded, my throat too tight to speak, and Susan squeezed my shoulder before heading back to Claire. I paced the waiting room, the linoleum squeaking under my boots. My phone buzzed, another text from Nathan. "You can't hide from me, Claire." I wanted to scream, to shatter the phone against the wall, but I shoved it in my pocket. I couldn't let rage win, not yet. I slipped into Claire's room, where she lay under a thin hospital blanket, her face pale, her good eye half open. "Mom," she murmured, her voice weak, I'm so sorry I dragged you into this. Her words broke me. Dragged me? I was her mother. Protecting her was my job, and I'd failed. I pulled a chair close, taking her cold hand. Claire, you don't apologize for this. None of this is your fault. But she shook her head, tears spilling. I should have left him sooner, Mom. I saw the signs. His late nights, the way Vanessa hung around his garage, smirking. But I stayed, thinking I could fix him. Her voice cracked, and she clutched my hand tighter. Last month, he pushed me against the wall when I asked about her, said I was crazy. Tonight, when I saw her name on his phone, he just exploded. Every word was a blade, carving deeper into my guilt. How had I missed this? I'd had Nathan over for Sunday dinners, watched him carve the roast, laughing with Claire at my oak table. I thought he was solid, a good man. Now I saw the truth. He was a coward, hiding behind fists and lies. I brushed Claire's hair back, my fingers trembling. You're safe now, sweetheart, I said, but my voice shook. Safe? How could I promise that when Nathan was still out there, his threats buzzing like poison in her phone? I stepped outside the room to catch my breath, leaning against the wall. That's when I noticed Claire's purse, half open on a chair. A folded piece of paper had slipped out, crumpled and stained. I hesitated, then picked it up, my heart pounding. It was a note in Nathan's scrawled handwriting. You're nothing without me. Stay quiet or you lose everything. Your home, your life. My vision blurred with tears, not just of rage, but of crushing guilt. That note wasn't just a threat. It was proof of how long Claire had suffered in silence, too scared to tell me. I clutched the note, my hands shaking as I shoved it into my pocket. I'd failed her, blind to the monster she'd married. Memories flooded back. Claire's quieter smiles over the past year. The way she dodged questions about Nathan. I'd chalked it up to stress, never imagining this. Dorothy, Susan's voice snapped me back. She stood at the door, her face softer now. Claire's clear of internal bleeding, but she's dehydrated and exhausted. We're keeping her for observation. I nodded, relief mixing with the ache in my chest. Back in Claire's room, I sat by her side, watching her sleep. Her face, even bruised, was still my little girl's, the one who'd run through my garden chasing butterflies. But now she was trapped in a nightmare I hadn't seen coming. I whispered, I'll fix this, Claire, I swear it. My guilt was a weight, but it was also fuel. I pulled out my phone, texting Tom Harrison again. Tom, it's worse than I thought. We need to move fast. As the first light of dawn crept through the hospital window, I knew this was just the beginning. Nathan thought he could break my daughter, but he didn't know me. I'd fight with everything I had to bring him down. By dawn, the hospital's fluorescent lights felt like they were burning into my soul. Claire was stable, sleeping fitfully in her room at Burlington General, but I couldn't rest. Nathan Reed's threats, those vile texts, and that crumpled note saying Claire was nothing, kept looping in my head. I sat in my pickup in the hospital parking lot, the Vermont sky turning gray, and gripped my phone. I'd been a nurse for 30 years, piecing people back together, but now it was my daughter who needed saving. I wasn't about to let Nathan walk free. I called Tom Harrison, our family lawyer, who picked up despite the early hour. Dorothy, I got your texts. This is bad, he said, his voice groggy but sharp. Bring me everything you've got. I told him about Claire's bruises, the photos I'd taken, and Nathan's threatening messages. I'm on my way, I said, starting the engine. Driving the 2 miles back to my house on Maple Street, I felt a fire in my chest. Not just anger, but a resolve to make things right. I stopped by my place to grab the photos I'd snapped of Claire's injuries. Her swollen eye, her split lip, that awful bruise across her stomach, a foot wide and black as night. Back at my kitchen table, I spread out the evidence like a battle plan. The photos were gut-wrenching, each one a reminder of Claire's pain. I found Nathan's note in my pocket and tucked it into a Ziploc bag, careful not to smudge it. Then I remembered Mrs. Ellen Walsh, my neighbor across the street, who had a security camera pointed at my front porch. I crossed the snowy yard, my boots crunching, and knocked on her door. Ellen, a spry 70-year-old who baked pies for the church bazaar, answered with a worried frown. "Dorothy, I saw Claire last night running to your door. Is she okay?" I swallowed hard, my voice tight. "Not yet, Ellen. Did your camera catch anything?" She nodded, pulling out her phone to show me the footage. There it was, Claire stumbling up my steps at 3:02 a.m., her face bruised, her sobs echoing in the grainy video. My heart clenched, but I copied the file to my phone, thanking Ellen with a hug. "You're a lifesaver," I told her. She gripped my hand. "Get that bastard, Dorothy." Next, I drove to Tom's office downtown, a small brick building off Church Street. He was waiting, his desk cluttered with legal pads. I handed over the photos, the note, and the video file. "This is solid," Tom said, his eyes scanning the evidence. "But there's more. Claire mentioned Nathan trying to take her condo, the one her grandpa left her." My jaw tightened. That condo, a cozy 2-bedroom overlooking Lake Champlain, was Claire's inheritance, her piece of family history. Tom frowned. "If he's forging documents, we need proof. I'll check the county records." Then it hit me. Vanessa Cole, Nathan's mistress. Claire had mentioned her hanging around his garage, smirking like she owned the place. I knew I had to confront her, to see if she'd crack. I drove to Beanery's coffee shop, a local spot 3 blocks from Nathan's auto shop, where I'd heard Vanessa liked to hang out. The place smelled of roasted coffee and fresh pastries, but my stomach was in knots. I spotted her in a corner booth, her red lipstick stark against her pale face, scrolling her phone. I slid into the seat across from her, my voice low but sharp. "Vanessa, I'm Claire's mom. We need to talk." She looked up, startled, her eyes narrowing. "What do you want, lady?" I leaned in, pulling out my phone to show a screenshot of Nathan's texts to Claire. "I know you're involved with Nathan. He's forging documents to steal Claire's condo, and you're in on it." Her face paled, but she scoffed. "You've got nothing on me." I slid a printed bank statement across the table, something Tom had dug up, showing Vanessa's overdue loans, thousands of dollars deep. "Help me, or you go down with him," I said, my voice like steel. Vanessa's hands shook, but she pushed the paper back. "Nathan promised me that condo would set us up. I'm not betraying him." I stood, my heart pounding, but my resolve firm. "You're making a mistake, Vanessa. When this goes to court, you'll wish you'd chosen differently." I walked out, the bell above the door jangling, my mind racing. Vanessa was loyal to Nathan for now, but I'd planted a seed. Back home, I checked on Claire, who was discharged and resting in my guest room. Her face was still swollen, but she managed a weak smile. "Mom, you don't have to do this," she whispered. I squeezed her hand. "Yes, I do, sweetheart." As I sat at my table, organizing the evidence, photos, video, Nathan's note, I knew the fight was far from over. Nathan thought he could scare us into silence, but he was wrong. I was ready to face him head-on, and he'd learn what a mother's wrath could do. The morning sun barely broke through the gray Vermont clouds as I drove my old Ford pickup to Nathan Reed's auto shop, a squat brick building on the edge of Burlington's industrial strip. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, the folder of evidence, Claire's injury photos, Mrs. Ellen Walsh's security footage, Nathan's threatening note, and Tom Harrison's initial findings on the forged condo papers, burning a hole in the passenger seat. I'd spent decades as a nurse, staying calm under pressure, but today my heart pounded like a war drum. Nathan had beaten my daughter, threatened her life, and tried to steal her inheritance. This wasn't just a fight for Claire, it was a reckoning. I pulled into the lot, the smell of motor oil and rubber hitting me as I stepped out. The shop's neon sign flickered, casting a harsh glow over rows of tires and car parts. Two of Nathan's workers, greasy coveralls stained with oil, glanced my way, one muttering to the other with a smirk. I ignored them, clutching my folder like a shield, and marched straight to the back office where I knew Nathan would be. My boots echoed on the concrete floor, each step a declaration. I wasn't backing down. Nathan sat behind a cluttered desk, counting cash, his broad shoulders hunched like he owned the world. He looked up, his eyes narrowing, a fake grin spreading across his face. "Well, look who's here. Dorothy, the hero mom. Come to lecture your son-in-law?" His voice dripped with sarcasm, and it took everything in me not to lunge across that desk. Instead, I slammed the folder down, papers spilling out. Claire's bruised face staring up at him. "This isn't a lecture, Nathan," I said, my voice low and sharp. "This is you answering for what you did to my daughter." His grin faltered, but he leaned back, crossing his arms. "What? Claire's little sob story? She's always been dramatic. You're wasting my time." My blood boiled, but I held my ground, pulling out my phone and hitting play on Mrs. Ellen Walsh's security footage. Claire's desperate sobs filled the air, her figure stumbling up my porch steps at 3 a.m., bruised and broken. Nathan's face froze, his jaw tightening. "Where'd you get that?" he snapped, his voice losing its cocky edge. "From someone who cares about justice," I shot back, tossing the threatening note onto the desk. "You wrote this, didn't you? Telling Claire she's nothing, threatening her life?" Nathan's eyes darted to the note, then back to me, but he forced a laugh. "You think you can scare me with some pictures and a video? I've got lawyers who'll bury you." I stepped closer, my voice like ice. "You're not burying anyone, Nathan. You beat Claire, you cheated with Vanessa Cole, and you forged her signature to steal her condo. I've got proof, and I'm taking you to court." He stood towering over me, his face red. "You're playing a dangerous game, Dorothy. Claire deserved what she got. She couldn't keep her mouth shut. And you're just a nosy old lady with no power." His words were a slap, but I didn't flinch. I leaned in, my eyes locked on his. "Call me what you want, but I'm Claire's mother, and I'll tear your world apart before you touch her again." I pulled out my phone again, showing a screenshot of Tom's county record search, highlighting the forged condo transfer. "This is your signature, Nathan, on a document Claire never signed. You're done." The air in the office grew thick, the hum of a nearby engine the only sound. Nathan's workers hovered at the door, but I turned, my voice cutting through. "Step closer and you'll deal with the Burlington PD." They backed off, their eyes darting away. Nathan slammed his fist on the desk, papers scattering. "You think you're tough, Dorothy? You and Claire will regret this. I run things around here." His threat hung heavy, but I saw the flicker of fear in his eyes. He knew I had him cornered. I gathered my folder, my heart racing, but my resolve like steel. "We'll see who's running things in court, Nathan," I said, turning to leave. As I walked out, the cold Vermont air hit my face, but I felt alive, electric with purpose. I'd faced the monster who hurt my daughter, and I'd shaken him. But this was just the start. Nathan thought he could intimidate me, but he didn't know the storm coming. I got back in my truck, my phone buzzing with a text from Tom. "Found more on the forgery. Meet me tonight." I nodded to myself, gripping the wheel. The battle was heating up, and I was ready for the fight. The Burlington courthouse loomed like a fortress under the cold Vermont sky, its stone steps slick with morning frost. I gripped Claire's hand as we walked inside, my heart pounding like it was trying to break free. It had been a week since I faced Nathan at his auto shop, his threats still ringing in my ears. Today, we'd face him in court, and I was ready to see him crumble. Claire, still bruised, but standing taller, wore a navy dress I'd picked out to cover the fading marks on her arms. "Mom, I'm scared," she whispered, her voice trembling as we passed the wooden doors. I squeezed her hand, my voice firm, despite the storm inside me. "We're in this together, sweetheart. He can't hurt you here." Inside, the courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension. Old wooden benches creaked as townsfolk settled in, some whispering, others staring. Mrs. Ellen Walsh sat in the back, her eyes meeting mine with a nod of support, her security footage now a key piece of our case. Tom Harrison, our lawyer, stood ready at the plaintiff's table, his suit crisp, his face set like stone. Across the room, Nathan sat beside his lawyer, George Larson, a slick out-of-towner in a tailored suit. Nathan's eyes locked on mine, his smirk twisting my gut. He thought he'd win this, just like he thought he could break Claire. Judge Margaret Klein entered, her robe swishing, and the room fell silent except for the hum of an old ceiling fan. Tom stood, his voice steady as he laid out our case. "Your Honor, Nathan Reed abused Claire Bennett, forged her signature to steal her inheritance, and threatened her life. He projected the evidence on a screen, my photos of Claire's bruises, a foot-wide mark on her stomach, her swollen eye, her split lip. Then came Mrs. Ellen Walsh's video, Claire's desperate sobs echoing as she stumbled to my door at 3 a.m. The room gasped, and I saw a woman in the gallery wipe her eyes. Claire gripped my arm, her breathing uneven, and I whispered, "You're doing great, honey." Tom held up Nathan's note, his voice rising. "This note, found in Claire's purse, threatens her to stay silent. You're nothing without me, it says. But Claire is everything, and she's here to fight." I felt a surge of pride, but my eyes stayed on Nathan, who shifted in his seat, his smirk gone. George Larson stood, his tone smooth as oil. "Your Honor, Claire Bennett fabricated this story to extort my client. These injuries could be from anything, and Mrs. Miller, a former nurse, is using her connections to manipulate the narrative." His words were a slap, painting Claire as a liar and me as a schemer. I wanted to shout, but Tom's glance told me to stay calm. Then came the bombshell. Tom called Vanessa Cole to the stand. She walked up, her heels clicking, her face pale under heavy makeup. I'd confronted her at Beanery's coffee shop, shown her the bank statement, with her debts, but she'd refused to budge. Now she stood, eyes darting to Nathan, who leaned forward, his jaw tight. "Ms. Cole," Tom began, "did Nathan Reed involve you in forging Claire Bennett's signature to transfer her Lake Champlain condo?" Vanessa hesitated, her hands twisting. The room held its breath. Yes," she said, her voice shaky but clear. "Nathan told me the condo would set us up. He said Claire agreed to the transfer, but I saw him sign her name on the papers. He pressured me to go along, said he'd ruin me if I didn't." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Nathan shot up, his face red. "You lying snake!" he shouted, slamming his fist on the table. The guards moved in, and Judge Klein's gavel cracked like thunder. "Order! Sit down, Mr. Reed, or you're out!" Nathan sank back, his eyes blazing, but Vanessa kept going. "He threatened Claire too. I heard him say she'd lose everything if she talked." I gripped Claire's hand, my heart racing. Vanessa's betrayal of Nathan was a knife to his defense, and I saw George Larson wipe sweat from his brow. Claire leaned into me, whispering, "She's telling the truth, Mom." I nodded, my throat tight with hope. For the first time, I felt justice wasn't just a dream. Tom turned to the judge, his voice firm. "Your Honor, with this testimony, the medical reports, the video, and the forged documents, Nathan Reed's guilt is clear." Judge Klein's eyes narrowed, and I knew she felt the weight of Vanessa's words. As Vanessa stepped down, her gaze met mine, a flicker of guilt in her eyes. I didn't forgive her, she'd helped hurt my daughter, but her testimony was a crack in Nathan's armor. The courtroom buzzed, and I felt the tide turning. but the fight wasn't over. Judge Klein called a recess, and I knew the final verdict was coming. I looked at Claire, her face still pale but her eyes brighter. "We're close, sweetheart," I said, my voice steady. Whatever happened next, I'd make sure Nathan faced the consequences. The Burlington courthouse was still buzzing as Judge Margaret Klein returned after the recess, her gavel cracking like a gunshot. I held Claire's hand, her fingers trembling in mine as we waited for the verdict. The air felt heavy, the old ceiling fan creaking above the packed benches. Across the room, Nathan Reed sat slumped, his face pale, the arrogance gone after Vanessa Cole's testimony had torn his lies apart. I glanced at Claire, her navy dress hiding the fading bruises, her eyes brighter than they'd been in weeks. "We did it, Mom," she whispered, her voice soft but steady. I squeezed her hand, my heart swelling with pride, but I held my breath, waiting for justice to land. Judge Klein's voice cut through the silence, firm and clear. Based on the evidence, medical reports, security footage, a threatening note, forged documents, and Ms. Cole's testimony, this court finds Nathan Reed guilty of domestic violence and fraud. A protection order is issued for Claire Bennett. His assets are frozen, and the Lake Champlain condo transfer is nullified. This case is referred to the district attorney for criminal charges. The room erupted in murmurs, some clapping, others whispering in shock. Nathan's head dropped, his lawyer, George Larson, staring blankly at his notes. I felt a weight lift, like I could breathe for the first time since Claire collapsed at my door. As we stepped outside, the midday sun warmed the courthouse steps, melting the morning frost. Claire leaned into me, her voice breaking. "It's over, Mom, isn't it?" I wrapped my arm around her, my voice steady, despite the tears in my eyes. "It's a new start, sweetheart." The crowd parted, and Mrs. Ellen Walsh hurried over, her face beaming. "You showed him, Dorothy. That girl's got her life back." I hugged her, my throat tight. "Couldn't have done it without your camera, Ellen." She waved me off, but her smile said it all. That afternoon, the Burlington police raided Nathan's auto shop, 3 miles from downtown. Word spread fast. Neighbors texted me grainy photos of Nathan in handcuffs. His head bowed as officers led him away. The local paper, the Burlington Free Press, ran a headline the next day. "Local mechanic arrested for abuse and fraud." Seeing it on my kitchen table, next to my morning coffee, felt strange. Not joy, but a quiet release. The man who'd sat at my table, who'd called me Mom, was finally paying for his sins. But the scars he left on Claire, on us, weren't gone. They'd take time to heal. Claire moved back into my house on Maple Street, her condo safe but needing repairs after Nathan's neglect. The first few days, she was quiet, waking from nightmares, her voice trembling as she'd call out, "Mom, he's here." I'd sit by her bed holding her hand, whispering, "You're safe now, honey." Slowly, she started to come back to herself. One morning, I found her in the garden, kneeling by my roses, her hands in the dirt. "These need pruning," she said, a small smile breaking through. It was the first time I'd seen her smile since that awful night, and it hit me like sunlight after a storm. I took her to a counselor in town, Dr. Linda Carter, recommended by Dr. Susan Hayes. Linda's office, a cozy space off Church Street, became Claire's refuge. After a few sessions, Claire started working part-time at the Fletcher Free Library, shelving books and chatting with patrons. One evening she came home, her eyes bright, and said, "Mom, a kid asked me to read him a story today. It felt good." I hugged her, tears spilling over. My girl, who'd been broken, was finding her way back one step at a time. The town started to shift too. Neighbors who'd whispered about us at the market now stopped to apologize. "Dorothy, we didn't know," said Mrs. Porter from the book club, her voice heavy with regret. I nodded, no anger left in me. I understood. Nathan's lies had been convincing, but the truth was louder. Claire and I spent evenings on my porch, sipping tea, watching the sunset over Lake Champlain, half a mile away. Those moments, quiet and warm, felt like reclaiming our lives. But as I watched Claire laugh again, planting flowers or reading by the window, I knew this victory wasn't just ours. It was for every woman who'd ever felt trapped, silenced by fear. I'd been a nurse, always fighting for others, but this fight, for my daughter, gave me a new purpose. Justice wasn't just a word. It was a fire that could light the way. And I wasn't done yet. There were others out there, needing someone to stand up for them, and I'd be ready. Sitting on my porch, the cool Burlington evening wrapping around me, I watched the sunset paint Lake Champlain in shades of gold, half a mile away. Claire's inside, humming softly as she waters my roses, her laughter slowly returning like a long-lost friend. That night at 3 a.m., when she collapsed at my door, bruised and broken by Nathan Reed, feels like a lifetime ago. I was a retired nurse, used to fixing wounds, but nothing prepared me for mending my daughter's spirit. Yet, we fought, through tears, through fear, through a courtroom that tried to silence us. And we won. Nathan's in jail, Claire's condo is hers again, and she's finding her smile. But this fight wasn't just for us. Every day, women like Claire suffer in shadows, their voices stolen by fear. I've learned silence is the enemy of justice. If you see someone hurting, a neighbor, a friend, a stranger at the grocery store, don't turn away. Speak up, listen, offer a hand. One small act can spark a change, just like Mrs. Ellen Walsh's camera footage or Vanessa Cole's testimony turned our world right side up. I'm no hero, just a mom who refused to let her daughter fade. And you don't have to be a hero either, just someone who cares enough to act. If this story touched you, please leave a like and drop a comment on our Voices of Mother Ruth channel. Share what you do in my place, or maybe a story of your own. Your words could light the way for someone else. And if you feel moved, hit that subscribe button. Join us to hear more stories of courage, because every voice matters. Together, we can keep fighting for those who need it most.